There's a lot of wrong ways to wash your car, and you could possibly cause damage to the paint if you do it incorrectly. There's also a lot of right ways to wash your car. I'm going to show you the one that I do, one that is easy and doesn't require a lot of materials, and something that you can do. First thing you're going to need is a bucket. I recommend getting one with a grit guard. You should be able to find these on Amazon for like $5 or $10. It goes in the bottom because it keeps the dirt from floating to the top. So when you wash off your mitts, you scrub it against this, all the dirt will fall to the bottom. Another thing that I like to do as a precaution against scratching your paint is to not use just one wash mitt. These are microfiber, which is the best. Don't use a brush on your paint. Please do not use something like this on your paint. Save this for the rims, the fenders, any types of plastic. I like to typically hit this area, and even up underneath here you can hit with this brush. Save the brush for durable materials. Your paint is not one of them. Besides a bucket, like I said, I like multiple mitts. I've got 4. So instead of rinsing these out and wringing them out, it takes a long time. You can probably get away with 1 or 2 doing your car, but it saves me a lot of time if I have multiples, so I just do one section of the car with 1 mitt. Once that's dirty and soiled up, I move on to the next one. Next thing you're going to want is some good drying towels. These are from The Rag Company. You can check them out online at theragcompany.com. These are waffle weave towels, very soft, very absorbent. They're designed for soaking up water on paint. Don't go with anything like a chamois or anything like that. Don't touch your paint with that, please. Really, any sort of microfiber towels are going to work for your paint. I like these cheap Costco towels for doing things like rinseless washes in the winter time. I also like them for interior. They're great for that. Windows and, cleaning the inside of your doors and things like that. More towels from the Rag Company. I like these for removing waxes and sealants because they're super soft and they will not scratch your paint as long as you don't get them dirty or use too much pressure. They will be perfectly safe. Speaking of applying waxes and sealants, I use these cheap microfiber applicator pads. I'll go over that in another video, but I just want to cover the basics here of materials that you're going to need for washing your car. Any soap will do. I like the Meguiar's brand stuff because they're easy to find locally at pretty much any store, and they're cheap. This stuff's about $9 for, half a gallon, 48 ounces. Not too bad a cost. If you're going to need something a little bit stronger, so if you have something very soiled like your tires or your wheel wells, you're going to want super clean, or really any all-purpose cleaner and degreaser. I like this because it's only like $8 or $9 a gallon. You can dilute this 1,000 ways. I like to use it 4-to-1 diluted with water, 5-to-1, 10-to-1. You can use it on interiors, you can use it on carpets. I use it for cleaning tires and rims at about diluted 4 or 5-to-1. Works great for that. One of the more important things about protecting your paint that a lot of people don't think about is the drying process. For that, you're going to want some sort of lubricant before you touch your paint with a towel, with your drying towel. And for that, I like to use a quick wax. So this is good. Also, the Meguiar's Ultimate Quick Wax is pretty good. Another thing that you can do is if you have Optimum No Rinse, which you've heard me talk about before, one of my favorite products, you can also spray that on 64-to-1. So that's like the clay bar dilution, I believe. You can spray that on your paint before you dry it off. So that's pretty much the basics that you're going to need. You can go down the rabbit hole and get more stuff like trim and tire gel or glass cleaner. You don't need glass cleaner. You can still use Optimum No Rinse for cleaning your windows, but invisible glass is good for that, and it's not going to damage your tinted windows if you have tint. Variety of brushes are good for, like I said, doing your wheel wells and tires and anything like that that's durable plastic materials that you're going to end up cleaning. So without further ado, let's get into it. I'm not going to use the pressure washer today. I don't feel like hooking it up. I'm just going to use a sprayer hooked up to the hose. I'm doing this video for those of you who don't have fancy materials or anything like a pressure washer. I want to demonstrate that you can do this with just basic stuff. A hose, a spray nozzle, and a couple cheap things you can get from Walmart or wherever. We'll be doing this car today. I don't like to fill up the buckets because I don't want to dilute the soap too much. So that's about a half gallon of water to, you saw how much I put in, maybe about an ounce of soap. You don't need a whole lot. Follow the bottle directions. Sometimes you need more or less depending on the brand. Now hold on a second before we go start spraying the car down. First thing we want to do is the rims. We don't want to get water spots in the car if it's sitting in the sun, so the first thing we're going to do is wash off the rubber bits on the bottom there. I just like to do a preliminary rinse just to get any of the loose stuff off first before I go hitting it with my super clean. Tires and rims are easy, guys. I got my soft brush for the rims and I got a stiff brush for the tires. Take my super clean diluted about 4:1, pre-soak my scrubby brushes, get it good, get inside there, be generous with it. You don't want to let this soak too long, but maybe a minute or two, just let it saturate and start breaking down that grime on its own. The chemical reaction works pretty fast with super clean. The stuff is pretty alkaline. In fact, you can see that starting to melt off that grime. It's turning brown on the tire there. See that runoff on the concrete? Stuff works pretty good just on its own without any manual scrubbing. Now let's give it a quick scrub and a rinse. The rubber on the edges, if you can find a brush like that, it works good so you don't scuff up your rims as easily. See how dirty that is already? If you need more, just hit it again. Now keep in mind, these brushes will not be touching your paint. Get in there. This brush is a little bit longer and easier to reach. Dirt wash away. Give it a good rinse. And on to the next one. Now it's time for the rinse. Top to bottom, that's it. I apologize for all the wind noise, guys. It's really windy today, in case you couldn't see the water blowing in my face. If you find this video useful, hit subscribe. Really appreciate it. If you got any comments, leave them below. Now we're going to get to the fun part. There's my soap bucket. And some people like to do one section at a time. Others like to do the whole car all at once. Me personally, the reason why I chose to use several mitts for washing instead of just one is so I don't have to stop. So before the rest of the paint dries completely in the sun, you got to start working pretty fast here. So I got my soap bucket with 3 mitts in there. We're going to work top to bottom and just work through the roof first and the hood, and we're going to work down to the sides. And I like to break it up where that line is in the middle of the door, so I'll take another wash mitt and do the side of the doors, and I'll do another wash mitt for the bottom, because typically the bottom is the most dirty part, so I save that for last, because that's when your wash mitt is going to be the most dirty. And honestly, if you are going to scratch something up, it's most likely going to happen down there along the fender line, because let's face it, that part gets the dirtiest and it kicks up all sorts of nasties. So here we go. Keep the surface wet if you're working in the sun. Working straight lines. See how I'm doing this? I'm just going like this back and forth, kind of like an S motion. Not a lot of pressure. If you got any bugs, that's what this back part is. I also do have a scrubby that is just like this mesh material here. That works good for getting bugs off windshields. But for the most part, I don't need it. Just working that S pattern. So I'm kind of doing the top half there. Depending on how dirty your car is, you may need to wash these out a couple of times. So be the judge how soiled your car is. Stop every once in a while and check to make sure that this isn't too soiled up. Not a lot of pressure either. Windshield sometimes gets bugged, so I'm going to flip this over. You can apply as much pressure as you want on your windshield. You're not going to scratch it up. Catches rocks all day long. But you see I'm kind of putting my back into this a little bit. Give that a quick swipe, get all that dirt off of there. These get really dirty. Side mirrors. Might need a little bit of scrub because that's gets the bugs a lot. It's an older car, so I don't need to be super gentle with it. But if you're doing a $40,000, $50,000 car, take your time, go slow, be careful. Now, this is dirty, so I'm going to switch to my next pad. Set that to the side. I like that good sopping wet. It's at this point you can decide if you're going to rinse the top part first, which it's windy and sunny. You can see it's starting to dry. I'm going to rinse the top right now. Working wet surface, because that's what causes water spots is when it starts to dry. So that's key. What I'm going to be doing when I'm going to be drying this is I'm going to be pulling it in the garage to keep it out of the sun. one side of the car at a time, or you could do the whole car. I'll show you what I do. I stay at this level and work my way all the way around. Notice I'm overlapping. Over and use the other side now. Alright, that's dirty. Set it aside. Rinse again. If there is one thing that you take away from this video, it's that I cannot underestimate the importance of properly drying your car. You'll notice that I pulled my car into the garage where it's out of the wind and out of the sun. This is the best way to prevent water spots and damage to your paint. It's to get it out of the sun as quickly as possible. If you don't have that option of putting it in a garage, pull it into the shade, under a tree or something after you're done washing it. Just make sure that the sun isn't beating down on it. Do it in the evening if you need to, if you live somewhere warm. The next thing is that you can still scratch your paint even after it's clean and you've scrubbed it clean, and there's dirt and mineral particles in that water that you just used, so that could still scratch your paint. You want to try to minimize as much as you're touching the car as possible. To do that, you can dry with one of these. Leaf blower. This is an electric leaf blower. This is the Works electric leaf blower that I use on my lawn a lot, on my driveway, to blow grass clippings. That works great, just to get the majority of the large water off. However, I'm going to show you, even if you don't have one of these, there's still a safe way to do it. Now that's going to be with some sort of lubrication. If you have a quick detailer, which is commonly found for like clay barring your car, if you're going to do that, you can use a quick detailer, just a few spritzes on each panel, or even a quick wax. Now that even adds a little bit of protection to the paint afterwards, so if you don't have time to put a sealant or a wax on right away, it'll give you a little bit of residual protection, maybe a week or two depending on the weather, maybe even longer. So that is really a pretty inexpensive insurance policy, I think, and it makes the drying go a lot better. It helps remove water spots even after you dry everything properly with the proper towels and everything. It just, you know, it's a little bit more lubrication on the paint. That's key. That's why we use soap on our paint. It's a lubrication, and it helps not only just lift the soil off your paint, but it's also to protect the paint as you're cleaning it. So you don't want to use something gritty on there. That's what polishing is doing, essentially, is it's very fine grit sandpaper that you're applying in a liquid form, and you're removing swirls that way. So that's a whole other topic that we'll get into maybe another day when I have time, but you don't want to scratch your paint, and you want to minimize touching it as much as possible. So without further ado, we'll get right into drying. Using the same towel that I used to dry my paint, I'll go over the windows first. I'll do the windshield because this works pretty good for that as well and doesn't leave a lot of streaks. Also, your towel is already going to be damp, which is going to really help a little bit more with that lubrication that I was talking about. So it's going to be a little bit more absorbent as well. Contrary to what you would think, having a slightly damp, not wet, but damp towel actually helps attract the water. So that helps aid in drying a little bit. So do your windows first, since you have a dry towel, and that kind of helps minimize streaking. This is a product I was talking about that I'm going to put on the paint as a lubricant. Just a few spritzes is all you need. I'll show you how much. That's it. 2 or 3 squirts on each panel. In fact, I'll go around, do the whole thing. You don't need a lot. In fact, this is probably too much. But whatever, it smells good. You could even do this if you want. Put a little bit on your rag. Just like we were washing, I'll start at the top down. I'll do the hood first. And notice I'm still doing that S pattern. Some people like to dab their towels, so they'll lay it across the paint like this and absorb it like that. That's probably the safest bet to minimize scratching. However, I find it leaves too much behind. So instead of going over it with a second time with another towel, I'll just dry it in an S pattern. And this, I'm not using any pressure at all. I'm just letting the towel glide across the paint. I'm not pressing, I'm not rubbing, I'm not going in circles. Just letting it glide on its own, under its own weight. It's starting to get wet a little bit, we'll wring it out. Again, no pressure, straight lines, work, and everything you do, work in straight lines. As it starts to get wet, wring it out. This thing holds a ton of water. Like you've seen, I've only had to wring it out twice so far, and almost all the car is dry. Most of the water you're going to get is going to be on the roof and the hood anyway. Everything else runs off. Let's go over it one more time. Notice I'm working in a circle. Some people don't do that. Some detailers like to do one panel at a time. I like to work top down, so I'll do this, go around, do this part, go all the way around. As I work my way down to the bottom, halfway through this panel, I'll walk around the car again and get to the bottom. And even if you have hard water, because of the technique that we're using, we're drying it in the shade, your water spots should be very minimal. If you do have water spots, again, that quick wax or quick detailer spray is going to be hugely beneficial to clean that up. Just a little spritz on a rag and a quick wipe down, and those water spots will be gone before you know it. Make one more pass, just double check, get all around the door, handles, underneath the mirrors. That's all there is to it. Now if you follow these guidelines, your car is going to be clean, it's going to be safe. You're going to have 90% of what a professional is going to do to your car if you do take your car detailing somewhere. With minimal investment of $20, $30 worth of high quality towels. You can even get away with cheaper towels, but I just love the Rig Company because it's good stuff. You could do this for, I don't know, 20, 30 minutes it took me to do it on a weekend. It's not that much effort. If you stay on top of it, do this on a weekly basis or a bi-weekly basis. You won't have to do a lot of scrubbing. You won't get a lot of buildup of dirt. The worst parts are along the bottom here and on the wheels and wheel wells. If you just stay on top of things, clean this on a weekly or just a regular basis, it's less effort. You may have seen me in that high-speed video I did. I took the doors open, I rinsed them out and cleaned them. That's what I call the armpits of the car. It's oftentimes missed, but if you get in between your doors, don't forget to wash in between there once in a while. Open up the doors, scrub it down, just like you do the exterior. Use a very light spray of water. That's all there is to it, guys. Again, please subscribe if you haven't already. Thanks for watching. Leave a comment below if you got any questions. Have a good one. Until next time.